Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm actually really excited for this episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by Dacher, Mr. Professor Dacher. He didn't want me to call him Professor, but he is, if you know anything about the well-being space or the study of it, or just exploring it for yourself, you would probably come across him particularly, or the Greater Good Science Center, the school, the department at the UC Berkeley. They're leading the way across the nation and the world in this study. And so I'm actually very, very excited. I had an outline, I had questions, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna throw out those outlines and questions because I just wanted to, pick his brain, almost just how he came about this and all these things, because for me, positivity is one of my things, and well-being. And it's just something, I like to talk about and study and bring it up with all my guests. But I had to do some learning for myself. And his center was a great resource, even in my journey of learning about well-being and practicing well-being for myself. So with that being said, I'll let you introduce yourself, just what you want the listeners to know before I go and ask questions.
Yeah. So, and is it Phil or Philip?
Tomato, you know what I'm saying? As long as you don't, I call, it's actually interesting. My wife calls me Philip. When I'm in trouble, she calls me Philip. All my boys call me Phil. So either way, I don't think I'm in trouble, so you can call me Phil, but I get both all the time.
Sounds good. Well, Phil, thanks. It's great to be on your show, especially during these times. And for your listeners out there, I went to college at UC Santa Barbara, big public school. I was a Pell Grant student and very proud of that. And then did grad school at Stanford, and then now I'm a professor at Berkeley. And I have a big lab that studies emotion and social class, poverty, power. And then, like you said, I started this Greater Good Science Center 20 years ago. And I think the idea was to do what you're doing, which is how do we spread positivity? How do we use science to have us find more meaning in the world? Especially during hard times like right now, right, with COVID and George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and how do we lead toward a more just society?
So you said you did specifically say what you were studying. Can you, for the listeners, say what was your actual major? And then when you said 20 years ago, so for what my understanding is, in regards to the field of positive psychology and Marty Seligman or whatever, that's probably the same time. And this is a very young branch off. Positive psychology is a young branch off in regards to that field and studying it from a Western mindset, about what makes us happy and stuff like that. So I think you were probably at the forefront of that study. So can you bring us back to like what you studied and you're like, what, there's a small niche. I want to explore this part of it.
Yeah. So I studied psychology and sociology as an undergrad. And I think that, I love sociology because it was really about social class and race and identity and family and big topics, right? But I like experiments and I like statistics and in particular experiments. So I got my PhD in social psychology, and then my lab has really been interested in a couple of things, which gets to positive psychology, which is, one is emotion. How do we express emotion? What happens when we get angry? How does it make us look at the world? Or fear? How does it relate to how well you're doing in life? And like you said, Phil, about 20 years ago, I was looking at the field of emotion, and mainly what we studied is anger and fear and disgust and sadness. And I was like, man, what about laughter? Or touch, or gratitude, or love, or kindness. And the emotion scientist was like, nope, those aren't emotions. You can't study them. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
So So I started to do that. And just as you nicely said, at about that time, 22 years ago, Marty Seligman was starting to talk about positive psychology, optimism, hope, and the like. And then I think what we've done at the Greater Good Science Center out at Berkeley is say, what about kindness? What about the stuff that makes us communal and connect to others, and carved out our niche in this space?
I love that the fact, and I listen to your podcast, and sometimes
Thanks.
I try the little exercises myself. Like I did one with one of my colleagues, I call them Team Positivity, my friend Dorothy and Christie. We looked at each other. We did the one like the zombie, like how can you humanize other people that look on the surface different from you?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is pretty cool. These are really quick, easy little experiments, but you can dive in deeper, but you can also do them just easily. When you say you are an emotional scientist, can you bring us back to the original, like the early days when you were like, yo, I'm gonna start doing experiments? Were you like, yo, I'm gonna make people laugh and just watch them? And they like, like, what were some of those early experiments like? And like, informally, it's like, yo, let me try these things with my family and friends, these little quick little experiments, social experiments, but like see how they change them or what they felt about it, or debrief with them afterwards. Take us back to that. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple examples, and thanks for asking the deep research questions, Phil. So when after I got my PhD, I worked for 3 years with a guy named Paul Ekman. And Paul, whom a lot of people have heard of, the show Lie to Me was based on his career, and he's a well-known guy. And he studied facial expression, which he's famous for, universality and facial expression. But what he did that influenced me even more is he developed a method for coding facial behavior, right? Where like I'm looking at you right now and I see a couple muscle movements. You're smiling, your mouth's open, you got the orbicular side. So he gave science this objective measure to capture emotion in the face. And I started to apply that in my studies of how people get embarrassed and how they show anger or shame. But here's what happened to me is what that method allows you to do is to go from your own lived social experience and then go study things like that in the lab. So for example, we did research early in my career on the power of laughter during stress and trauma, positivity, right?
Yeah.
And my friend had these videotapes of people whose partners had just died. They're going through grief. And he said, why don't you analyze what's going on in their faces? And I did in the 90s. And what we found is if you could laugh and think about the delights that you shared with your partner, right? You were doing better when you lost that loved one. Mm-hmm. I played a lot of pickup basketball throughout my life, and I think basketball is the most amazing institute.
I remember that. I remember you talked about. Hey, see, man, this is where I'm fanboying a little bit. Is I remember you talking about high fiving and just touch. I was like, man, I remember because I played sports too, and it was like central. Like I played football and ran track. And it was just something about camaraderie and stuff like that. So yeah,
exactly.
That touched base with me too about the basketball thing. But I'm not gonna go on too many tangents. But yeah, go back. That was cool.
So this just gives your audience, and thanks for saying that. This gives your audience a sense of how we do our work. Like I've been playing basketball, and it's a real physical sport. People are banging into each other, and it's always pretty friendly, right? Even though you're talking trash, in the end, you leave like there's camaraderie, like you said, Phil. And as my friend, my collaborator and I were like, it's all because of touch. Like basketball has the most amazing language of touch. And so knowing how to work with coding behavior, we did a study of NBA teams and found the more they touch and celebrate, high five, flying chest bumps, the better they do, right? So to conclude, like what I learned early in studying emotion in my science is stay close to the real phenomena, right? Like stay close to why do people laugh? Why are they touching each other? Why do they hug? How do we flirt with each other? What does power do to how I drive, right? And so we've always made sure to use that method to capture real behavior.
Well, two things I spend off, and I know I'm going on tangents. One is, have you ever seen that YouTube video where the guy had his head down, he was really sad, and the little short, like the point guard, lifted his friend's head up? I might have to send that to you. It was like it was one of the most powerful things ever. It was like college basketball. I think they were from UCLA, actually. 2 college players from UCLA. One guy was doping and had his head down, and the dude just walked up to his homie and just pulled his head up, like, put your head up. It was just a simple thing like that, but it's like, wow, that's so powerful that like you lifting your friend up and your teammate. That's one. But 2, the thing that I was really want to kind of ask question is like, you know, like with experiments, I'm not the best scientist, you know, I'm a history major, but I know that there could be a lot of variance in your studies, variance such as, you know, the control group and making sure you have enough numbers. Like I can study the facial expressions of 10, but is that 10 representative? And so how did you in your earlier days or as you grow, make your studies, the studies, not bandwidth, but, you know, wide enough that it captures all those variances, you know, like the way someone smiles in China and how they show pride is different than someone showing pride in a different country. Or, you know, like, for instance, certain cultures, you know, like we talking about words of affirmation and that emotion, like I'd be lucky if as a black male, you get mad compliments, you know, you'll take it a different way. Like I see you doing big, like someone's not going to say, you really impacted my life, I love you. But they might say, yo, I'm really proud. You did some big things. You take, you know, coded ways of how we measure those things. How did you account for that variance across cultures for things that are, as you say, universal? Emotions are universal, but I guess the variance and how we show emotion is not universal across cultures.
No, you know, so you know, one of the things that you want with good science is this about the real world, right? And by that, I think there are a couple of questions that people should be asking about studies is, number one, is it really capturing the phenomenon, right? Like, so when we did our study of basketball and touch, we didn't do it on, you know, we did it on the NBA.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, yeah.
People are like, those guys know basketball. So, you know, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing, and it's really deep, Phil, you know, and is there's a worry right now in social science that our samples are too weird. And by weird, it's Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, right? Weird. And so what a lot of research has largely been based on white people, right? White men.
I love it because, you know, I'm just saying in this space, I love it. I love well-being, and I look at people, but then when I look around the room and like, I think about it, I'm like, yo, that's, you know, this is a lane I want to go into. I'll be totally transparent. Like, I love this. I think I can go into it. I'm not the best scientist, but I love the practicality of it. I love how well-being can be empowering for Black people, how well-being can be necessary for social change and social justice. But when you look around the room, you say that too. Like, one of the biggest things I've seen is that, like, yo, black people can't be focused on well-being. We got other issues to worry about, you know, like, you know, we don't have the luxury or privilege to journal and smile and you know, you get what I'm saying? Like, the study of it, I think, is very practical, and I think it's very useful across races. But at the same time, there's a stigma that, you know, the stigma is that usually the best things that make you feel good or for you is only afforded to the rich and white. You know, like, I can't afford a healthy diet, or I can't take the time to practice yoga. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got kids. So yeah, like, I definitely, that really hit me. The weird part, I never heard of that term, but I want that to be destigmatized, and I want more inclusive people to see and buy into it as well-being as a thing that is for everybody, so that you can do the work to change the world. Like, you know. Yeah.
You know, and I could not agree more. So so what we do in our science is we make sure we study people of color, right? Blacks in studies. We've got lots of, you know, in California, I think 25-30% of our state is Mexican American. So we do a lot of research on Mexican Americans. Secondly, we make sure we, like, take the wisdom of the culture to create new ideas in science. So in Mexican American culture, family is huge. And that's leading to this whole new thinking about, wow, family matters massively for Mexican Americans, you know, for their happiness.
Right.
But the other thing, you know, I'll say, and it's so interesting it's so profound you brought this up. Like some of the stuff that we study in my lab, like awe and beauty and music and wonder and gratitude, everybody's like, oh, that's just for privilege, right? It actually is the opposite. And what we find, and we publish these papers, is poorer people and people of color practice more gratitude. They show more compassion. They feel, Paul Piff, my former student, has a paper out on poorer people feel more awe on a regular basis. Okay. So that tells us that it may be just the opposite, that if you don't have the money to buy a fancy car, you will rely on compassion, gratitude, and awe. So I love how you're questioning the assumptions of privilege, which are really
and I love it because honestly, on the flip side, the practicality of practicing well-being could just kind of be switched. So for instance, I'm the chaplain, God bless you. Like randomly, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, the first historically Black fraternity. And in the chapter, they're just saying, you're the well-being guy, we'll make you the chaplain. I was like, all right, like, okay. But it's because, I overtly think about positivity. I'm not super preachy or religious, but one time I tried this activity where I was like, for the month of May, it was Mental Health Awareness Month. So I practiced with my chapter. I said, we're going to do TRL or Theta Rho Lambda. We're going to do TRL Cares. And we were just going to do little random stuff, like daily challenges that you could do, that everyday person could do. And we're going to practice on on my chapter. And some of this stuff was just like, as you said, was like, yo, let's make a playlist and everyone dump in songs. That's probably that was like the most engaged activity. We had a playlist of everyone jumping their favorite songs and we listened to it. I still got that. Or one was like, yo, we're going to donate, everyone chip in $20 to donate to our scholarship. That was like the part of altruism. That was probably one of the most utilized activities. Like everyone's not rich, but the fact is like, yo, all of us can spare $20. And so I really am working. That's what I love about your office. I love about this study is that, yes, you back it up with numbers and facts. But I was like, yo, at the end of the day, everyone wants to know what tangible little thing can I do individually? And what can I do with my resources? And I think you're right. Some of the things is just like, you broke, go for a walk and look around. Anyone could do that, and I love that. Was something that was always, I think one of the things that makes your office so special, or the study so special, is that you said it very well, is that some people don't realize they are practicing this on a day-to-day basis, unbeknownst to them, with the resources they have, until you give it a label. Oh, you complimented someone. You just did affirmation, right? Oh, what? Right. I was just saying, that's my man's. I just gave him a compliment. Or, oh, wow, we went for a nature walk and you were just saying that the trees was beautiful. Well, that was all, right? Like, that was all. So I love that. I love that you back up hard science with just practicality. So I think one of the things I want to lead into, another question is, did you ever get challenged? Like maybe take yourself back in a time machine. Did you get, I guess with you and Marty Seligman, like, did you ever just get real challenged? Like, yo, why are you devoting all this time to this? This is foo-foo, this ain't, kind of thing. And I like to say we're foo-foo, but you know what I meant? Like, they're really foo-foo, woo-woo, wah-wah, woo-sa, what I'm saying? Woo-sa, this is foo-foo. And you had to really, really fight to back it up and hit them with numbers and hit them with, big paper that you publish and say, you know what? No, this is not foo-foo. This is real legit science. Can you take us to some challenges that you had with proving the validity of your study?
Yeah, I mean, so the challenge is, if you go back in that time machine you're talking about, Phil, and it's like 20 years ago, I mean, one set of challenges was from people in my field who are like, why study positive stuff when you should be studying depression? And I'm like, hey man, it's all part of the human condition. And so there was a lot of criticism around that. There was a lot of criticism from outside of my colleagues, of just, the same sort of thing, like, we have more serious things to worry about than, are you feeling grateful, or are you getting out in nature? And you've already captured it, which is, I've always challenged that by studies and neuroscience and the like. And then I think that I want to just kind of comment on one thing that you really brought up, which is really important, which is, scientists used to feel really hesitant about saying, I've got a finding here's how you should practice it, right? I've got a finding on walking outdoors. It's good for your immune system. Here's how and we're now at a point, I think, in our culture where people are hungry for it. They want to hear about, how do I practice an affirmation? How do I express gratitude to a friend? Because our culture is suffering right now, and has been for 25, 30 years. And so I feel like we have to what you're doing right now, Phil, which is like, hey, here's some ideas. Let's go do it, right? Because the data are clear about the benefits of this for our mind and body, and we got to be bold.
I love that you said that, because I am a man of action and not and not retrospection. I mean, I get it later, and so I think what you help me do and fuel me is, like, I've been doing stuff like this and playing around and being goofy and giving out fake certificates. I used to give out fake certificates to people, and like, you won something. They're like, what do you win? Absolutely nothing. This piece of paper, I call them ill Phil awards. But now it's like, okay, I want to, and this is where I think your office has done me a lot of service, is that, like, I am now continuously trying to look for ideas and fun little activities and practical activities. But now I also want to know, like, okay, but there is a purpose to this. There is a purpose. I don't need to explain the purpose, but at least I know the purpose, like in the behind the scenes, like, yep, I got them. And I'll say that too, like in my mind, like, oh, they don't know, they're practicing well-being. But in the back of my mind, I like that idea. First of all, I like the thought of being a mad scientist, because I think I am a little mad sometimes, but it's like, when you do these things and people don't know it, they're kind of tricked into it. You ever remember when you would try to feed someone vegetables and stuff? You were like, okay, if I give them straight up vegetables, they won't eat it. But if I chop it up and mix it in lasagna, they'll eat it. And you're like, you know what? Haha, I got you. And that's what I think. I think that's what your office does, is that, okay, if you want to do a deep dive and do the science of it, yes, you can do that. But also at the same time, on the surface level, if you just need activities, we got you here too. And I think that's the good balance. I think that's a perfect balance.
Thank you.
And you did speak about it. I kind of want to touch upon that too, is you said the culture is thirsty for this. They need it.
Yeah.
I would say there's no better time than right now. No, I told you before offline, man, COVID-19 is the master pop quiz that no one expected for well-being. Like, oh, you think you positive? Let's see it. You know what I'm saying? So can you explain that demand for this, the demand for this study? Has it increased your workload? And like, man, they keep on now, more people are coming to you like, Dacher, like, what are we doing? We need help. Can you give us more ideas? Like, you're getting more bombarded because of this time of COVID. And then also additionally, where do you think the future is going to be with this study, or this field? Because I bet you, I'll put my money on it that there's going to be more centers. There's going to be more greater good science centers. We got a center for the advancement of well-being at Mason, right? More and more colleges are going to put well-being centers, not the mental health centers. They got those. I'm talking about actual well-being centers at multiple colleges. I think that's going to grow. What do you think?
Yeah, man, you're totally getting right to the core of my career. So it's so interesting. So just a little side note. When I was teaching happiness at UC Berkeley, 600 people in the class, right before COVID broke, and the last class we talked about is, if you have economic inequality, you can't be happy, right? And it was about all the data showing the US has a lot of economic inequality, racial disparities, and it hurts our bodies and it hurts our happiness. And all my students, when COVID broke, were like, when are we going to start hearing the findings for race and class? And now they're here, and it's a lens upon our culture. You're right. When COVID broke, I was like, oh, this is a question of a virus, right? It's not my job to talk about that. And demand exploded. I mean, I've been, just like you're intuiting, like, studies, help out with people, speak to audiences, etc. And I think the reason why is that the virus has shined a light on the troubles of our country. And the troubles of our country are, white supremacy, inequality. We can't get outdoors enough. We don't have the right kind of healthcare. We don't have people practicing positivity. And so we've got a lot of work to do. And the future is in what you're doing. which is in universities, this is going to be a part of every university curriculum. In healthcare, we're going to be training people like you who are in hospitals who are helping people who are dying, right? So that they not only talk to a medical doctor, they talk to someone who can say, what are you grateful for? Where's the compassion right now? So I think coming out of this, Phil, your students who are getting into what you're teaching, that they've got good careers heading towards them that we need.
And like I said, like, you know, my normal lane is in the Career Center, but even in the Career Center, we're putting into place, how are we committed to well-being in our strategic plan career-wise? So like literally every single office is tapped in some way. You're going to say, what are you doing toward well-being? So for instance, like if you're at the diversity office, they say, okay, diversity inclusion, but what are you doing in regards to well-being at this space? Okay, you're in athletics and physical stuff. What are you doing? Like well-being is starting to like sprout up in every single department across the university. And I was like, yo, like I really think like the office too is getting bigger and bigger and more love at Mason. They're, you know, sending out weekly correspondence and emails and listservs and activities. They reference you guys. And it's just like, I know there's going to be a need because as you said earlier, I think in this time, I love it. I think we're vibing. I used to joke about that vibration. Like we're on the same level of vibration. I was like, man, we vibing though. Is that, this virus has become a giant mirror on society. It has flipped society and said, look at yourself and how you addressed racial inequality. Look at yourself and see how you have dealt with health disparities across taking care of people. Look at yourself. And there's no way, because you know what? We can't go outside. Everyone's on their phone. These Black Lives Matter is not new. They had a Black Lives Matter about 3 years ago. It's now a more accepted hashtag for a multitude thing, because it's literally saying, yo, you can't go outside. You got to face this. And I was like, man, we can't escape it now. And I think that hopefully this is the part where I love hope and optimism, is that I truly, truly believe, you know, obviously nothing's going to be perfect, but we're going to come out of this a better society, slightly better. I don't know, or different, at least different, you know.
No, there's no doubt, you know, no, it's, you know, and it's so interesting, Phil, you know, I think the Black Lives Matter movement right now is the most important political moment in 50 years in the United States. And I'm really excited and optimistic. And it's interesting, you know, I get their newsletter, and this is to your thought. It's so fascinating. One of the first people they had on their new offerings was Deepak Chopra, who promotes wellness and well-being. And he was leading a meditation. I'm like, wow, social justice and meditation. That's a good sign.
And let's be real, you know, I'm definitely positive, but I'm also realistic, is that what is going to be, what I also think about the societal change, focusing on happiness, is the bottom dollar. And so a lot of people also know that we're going to save a lot of money by focusing on well-being, because if we focus on well-being, there'll be less people that we need to pay for in hospitals. More people will be employed. More people will be employed. More people that are employed will stay at their jobs. They actually be better workers. I don't know. I feel like I think additionally, a lot of businesses, money, I will find that this is important too, because this will increase the bottom dollar and infuse the economy as well. So like, I think you're right. I think you're right. Like you're gonna like turn on the TV and you're like, man, this is I'm looking at the Crest commercial and they talking about well-being. Like Crest make you the happiest teeth. Like what? like how they gonna just throw well-being on everything? I swear. Like they're gonna be like, this is well-being approved. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like it's going to, this study and the practicality and also the I guess the arms of this octopus is going to touch multiple facets of our society. And
I think and I think that this moment has added a new wrinkle or important dimension. Now people are saying you got to have diversity to be happy, right? And to be healthy. So Apple's devote a bunch of money to diversity. I think we're in for really exciting times.
Okay, this is societal study. Both me and you are going to be observers. What are some things like in the next 5 years, you know, like put on your, what's your Nostradamus, whatever hat. What are some things what are some things you're going to be like, I'm calling it right now, but let's keep our eyes open and see if this either comes true or not, particularly for your field, but also that infusion in different pockets. Where do you see the future, not only of this study, but just the way we view it in the next couple of years? And also particularly coming through COVID.
Yeah. So I would say number one is what you've already pointed to, which is students today are more stressed than they've been in a long time. I'm sure you're seeing it. and we are going to have.
And a real caveat is that I agree with their stress because they're getting inundated with way more information than I ever had. That's my little side tip.
Exactly.
Like, they on social media, man, they getting it. I always tell my young frat, when I advise them, I say, right after you graduate, get off social media for 3 months, because what happens, like every single time, is they graduate, they look at their friends, they feel like they're not keeping up with the Joneses, and they go into a post-grad depression. So yes, I think the young people are experiencing way more stress than I can ever imagine.
Yeah. And so I think the first thing I see in the next 5 years is what you're doing, which is, let's make the well-being conversation part of education, right? Classes, centers, podcasts. I think number two is the COVID crisis has revealed that we fundamentally need to support well-being in hospitals and medical care. I went through a loss in my family 18 months ago. My brother passed away. Very young guy. It was a very difficult process. And there was no one around like you who was saying, let's have the conversation. Let's talk about kindness. Let's do deep breathing to handle pain, right? And as you said, Phil, like the absence of that knowledge in our healthcare is costing lives. It's making families suffer. And it's costing us billions of dollars, right? People are getting addicted to painkillers when they could be practicing gratitude or self-affirmation. I think that I think we're going to we need the next MLK to say, here are the ills of our society, and here is my path forward as almost a spiritual or value-based path, right? I'm not going to burn too many fossil fuels. I'm going to make sure my income goes to people who deserve income. I'm going to make sure people get deep. So we need that. So I think that's starting to happen in different places. So I'd keep an eye on that. I think
you shout out the good brother, my frat brother, Martin Luther King, but don't look at me to be the next one. Shout out to him though, because I definitely, and he also, if you definitely look at what I used to, a lot of people think of the I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King, but no one really realizes the radical social economic speeches he had about financial empowerment and Black business. And so he definitely, he was able to be a voice, but he was talking some real stuff that, in different, different pockets. He would talk about health. He would talk about that because he knew he had an audience. So that's definitely dope. So maybe some young voices out there. Listen, not me, Philip Wilkerson, but them young voices out there that are good at speeches. You heard it here first. You need to. I'll support you and clap for you when you're on stage.
And I'll be in the front row.
Yeah, me too. I'll be in the front row. So this is a portion I could go on for days, but I'm trying to keep it timely. Then we have to do a part 2, but we'll definitely stay in touch.
Sure.
Ask your advice.
I'll come back.
But this is the part of the show I surprise you. I like surprise. It's called Shot for Shot. And now with Shot for Shot, we don't have no liquor or nothing like that, but you get to ask me any random question you want related to this topic or not. I get to ask you one. Do you want to go first or I'll go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, you go first. Yeah.
So in your life, what's a piece of wisdom coming out of African-American culture that positive psychology needs to promote and build?
Well, I think one is that we need to destigmatize, particularly as in a group that has been oppressed, is that, those things like self-love is the best love. You deserve it. You deserve love. You deserve, when I say deserve love, you deserve self-care. You deserve to be happy. Taking steps to be happy does not lower your awareness. You're not less woke. Putting a smile on your face. does not make you less aware of the systemic racism that's going on. I'm very involved, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very involved with social justice. I am the advisor for the NAACP at my campus, the Alphas, whatever.
Right on.
But at the end of the day, I'm still laughing and joking just as much. If you really knew Martin Luther King, they said he was a big jokester. And
Yeah.
so I think we need to allow ourselves the space to, yes, fight the good fight. Yes.
Yeah.
Address systemic racism. Yes, you know, be woke or whatever. But at the same time, it's not corny to be happy. It's not corny to say you love each other. It's not corny to practice well-being, like practice well-being. If you think it's corny to practice well-being, then make it cool in your way that quote unquote stereotypically is cool. Make it fit yourself. But I think us as African Americans need to participate. We also, as I said, as you know, I'm on campus, right? And I'm on the well-being committee at George Mason, which is different pockets, people doing it. But I'm the few Black men involved at the conversation, knowing good and well there's a lot of other Black men that can contribute to this. And so it's almost that like, no, we need to be in that conversation too. They need to hear how a Black man makes himself happy. They need to hear how a Black woman makes themselves happy. And so I think that is my advice to the Black people, the Black culture, the Black, you know, African Americans, whatever, is that we need to have a seat at the table in regards to well-being. And we also need to show up and allow ourselves to be happy, allow ourselves to implement self-care, allow ourselves to fight generational trauma by how we show up every day, but also take care of ourselves. So, you know, whoever's listening, you Black, you deserve to smile and laugh and joke.
Absolutely.
And be corny. I'm corny. I'm the corniest guy you know. I don't care. But also, I definitely am quick to say I love my friends. And my friends like, man, you stop telling me you love me. I say I love my friends all the time when I get off the phone. But that's like, I think that's the thing we need to do. We need to destigmatize that, as you said, this is not weird, and weird as in that acronym. This is not only afforded to the weird category.
Yeah.
This is well-being is essentially for everybody. And also, I think lastly, I think well-being is definitely needed for people that are practicing social justice, because you're doing a lot of taxing mental hard work. You deserve to take care of yourself too. And so definitely be a social justice advocate, but take care of yourself and just and know that you deserve it. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in being happy.
Profound.
All right. So my question for you, it's straight up basketball, man. That's why.
All right.
So one, what is your game? Like, are you a slasher? Are you a shooter? Whatever. Like, what is your style of play? And then if you can assemble a starting five, all NBA team of all decades, not just the 90s or 2000s, my starting 5 point guard, who would they be? So it's a basketball question. I want to know your basketball.
Oh man.
Yeah. I was ready for that one. I was ready for the basketball. I had the basketball question loaded as soon as you said basketball.
So my game was, I'm like 6 feet tall. And regrettably, I didn't develop good ball handling skills. So I am really good on defense, and I'm really good. I'm a great rebounder. And it's just, for a 6 foot white guy, I get more rebounds than any human being. And then I'm slasher. You got it right. Like, I like, moving to the basket. And then, so did you ask point guard or starting five?
No, starting five, but the slasher, AKA, when I used to play, and I suck at, you're way better than me in basketball, I'll give you that. But when I just got rebounds and hustled, I called myself Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace?
But he was tall also, but he was just a freak of nature athletically. But have you ever seen like a play where Ben Wallace went coast to coast dribbling?
No.
It's awful. So but he got rebounds. He was all NBA defense, all NBA whatever, but he could not dribble to save his life. So I when I played game and I got rebounds, how people would say shoot and say Kobe. I get a rebound and say Ben Wallace, and that's what I would say. So that was like so bad at basketball. But go ahead. So what's your starting five?
Oh man, you're gonna break my heart because I'm an old Laker fan, and I know some of the Warriors coaches. So, but I'd go Michael Jordan, LeBron, Steph Curry. So that's three. I'm going to surprise you here. He doesn't get the credit. Kareem was the greatest offensive machine in the history of the NBA. And then I'd probably put Kobe in there.
Oh, that's a squad though. I love the I always get into debates about that,
Who would you have?
Okay, so I got I got MJ. I
Yeah.
keep MJ. Yeah, LB. Yeah, you got to have that. Kobe. So it's between Steph Curry and Kareem. And I guess you got Kareem for your center, right? It's my center will either be Shaq or it will be Akeem the Dream.
Yeah,
because
Akeem was really close for me.
And then Steph Curry that's like your shooting guard, right? Your two.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, I mean I've never seen a shooter like him. He's probably one of the best shooters all time. So so I think my only difference person would be my center, and that would be either Akeem the Dream or Shaq, depending on what I wanted. And
I thought about Hakeem too.
I remember I used to love. I mean, I'm a military brat, but I used to love Akeem the Dream. I have his basketball cards. I love he would do the spin move. His moves. I mean, and he changed the game where he teaches that. He taught that like legit centers had to learn how to have footwork like him. So he changed the game for centers.
He could run. That guy could run.
And he also probably could dribble too. So so I had a pleasure doing this. This is great. So we dropped knowledge. We only touched the tip of the iceberg of well-being.
Yeah.
But as I said, for my segments of my show, the platform is yours. Shout outs and plugs. Shout out anyone you want to show love to, anyone, your coworkers, anyone, and then plugs or anything where the listeners. I'll put these in the show notes where the listeners can follow up, either get to know you on LinkedIn or whatever, or anything that you want them to be aware of, to keep a lookout for, and I'll put that in the show notes so that they can subscribe and like and all that stuff. So my mouth is shut. I won't interrupt. Shout outs and plugs.
So my shout out is, I have two. One is to the Greater Good Science Center. Phil, we've been talking about it. greatergood@berkeley.edu. greatergood.berkeley.edu. I have a podcast. Our podcast, we're very proud, is really diverse, has all kinds of voices. So it's the new era of positivity. And I hope I can get you on the podcast.
Hey, you didn't say nothing but a word.
And then I want to do a shout out to a brother and a friend of mine, Justin Michael Williams, who has he's African American, grew up tough place, and he's written a brilliant book on mindfulness called Stay Woke: Mindfulness for the Rest of Us. Justin Michael Williams, it's a brilliant book. It is spectacular, and I think your students would love it, and I loved it, and he's an amazing writer and a brilliant mind. So check it out.
Also, I need to connect with him because I need to see more, like I said, more brothers in this space. I could probably learn from him too. So I'd never heard of him before, and so this is great. I love to just meet other people studying this stuff and attach myself and get to know them. So that's pretty cool. And I like the title, Stay Woke. I like that. That's good. Yeah. So I'll definitely put all that in the show notes. We'll have you again. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, the listeners, this has been a resource for me. This also started off I've been podcasting for 3 years, Positive Philter, but when I took randomly, I tell you that I took the class through edX. I was like, you know what? I just want to know what's out there. We got this professional development that we can use in my office. They say we can study stuff. I'm gonna just pick something I like. So I saw edX, and then I saw Science of Happiness. I was like, what's this? And I was like, wait a minute, it's not that bad. It's only $150. I got a couple of my colleagues to do it with me, so I wasn't by myself. My friend Christie, and I would tell you what, like the videos, I still reference it. I still go back and click on my link because my account is still good. I still just listen to the podcast and practice the little tips, and it was just like that's something like wow, like I'm academic. I got a master's, but I would say that was something that actually held my attention. Meaning like this was something like I was interested in, and like I like the YouTube videos. So please continue to do what you're doing. I'm always saying like people need to hear what they're doing and how impactful they are, but you don't know how many lives you probably touch with some class. Or I'm just going to upload a video. Well, I loved it, and I sent it to all my friends.
Thank you.
I share the articles. I practice on people. As you said, I practice these things on my friends and see if I can get them to think about well-being on the low, but I don't tell them I'm practicing on them. So your resource is really good. So please keep it up. I think it's a space that we need. It's something we need definitely during this time. If you're listening to this podcast, please click on the resources and follow up, get connected, practice with me, send me texts, say how much you love me. But this is a great space. So listeners on the podcast, please like, subscribe, share this episode with your family and friends. If you want to leave a voicemail for the podcast, it's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Thank you, Dacher, for being on the show. Thank you so much. This has been great. Everyone, I appreciate you. I love you. Keep on sharing positivity. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.